Pool party start today at 5-6 o'clock. If you already got the address, pull up, man. You got the address, pull up. If you need the address, DM you right now. Pool party start at 5 o'clock. I bet you all thought this was Theo's final moment before his death. In a shocking turn of events, a nurse has revealed never heard before details about Theo's disturbing final moments at the hospital. And trust me, what she said changes everything. I got all the details. Let's get into it. The shocking revelation. They left him bleeding out while laughing in the hallway. That's what a nurse at Tampa General allegedly whispered to her colleague after watching paramedics roll in a lifeless body. That body was Foolio, real name Charles Jones Jr., a rapper who, whether you knew him from his music or his enemies, died. On his own birthday, he was only 26. The hospital staff, who weren't supposed to speak on what happened that night, are now breaking their silence, and what they're revealing paints a disturbing picture, not just of that tragic morning, but of how deep the hostility toward Foolio ran even inside the walls of the very place meant to save lives. But before we break down the revelations, let's go back to the beginning. Foolio's final 24 hours. July 6, 2024, the day Theo should have been celebrating his 26th birthday. Instead, he was being hunted. He started the day like many other rappers in Florida do, by going live on Instagram, smiling, promoting a pool party in Tampa, Florida, and sending his fans the address. Pool party start the day at 5-6 o'clock. If you've already got the address, pull up, man. You got the address, pull up. If you need the address, DM me you right now. Pool party start at 5-6 o'clock. That pool party would be his last public appearance alive. Within 12 hours, gunfire erupted in the parking lot of the Holiday Inn near Busch Gardens. Authorities confirmed 4 people were shot, 1 died. That person was Theo, but the media reports barely scratched the surface. They made it sound like just another shootout. But the truth, according to those at the scene, is that this was a coordinated ambush set up with military-level precision and fueled by months of surveillance. One of the most disturbing details from this entire investigation, confirmed in multiple interviews, is that cops laughed when they heard Foolio had been killed. He's like, oh, this guy, I'm surprised he didn't get killed earlier. You know, he's desecrating people's graves and talking about dead people and all that. You know, he got what he deserved. This wasn't an isolated attitude. According to Boozy, who's had his own run-ins with law enforcement, a large portion of officers celebrate when rappers like Theo get gunned down. Like they be happy as no one dude got, they walk straight on there like finally got him. They finally got you. So when Theo was brought to Tampa General with 4 gunshot wounds, including 1 to the chest, he didn't just have to fight for his life, he was surrounded by people who didn't want to save him in the first place. One trauma nurse who asked to remain anonymous for fear of losing her job said nobody in the ER had ever seen a patient come in with that many gunshot wounds and still be conscious. According to her, Theo tried to speak before flatlining, mouthing something that sounded like, "Don't trust," but his voice was too weak to finish. He died less than 10 minutes later. But the behavior of the staff after his passing is what's causing outrage inside the hospital community. According to a second nurse who claimed she was near the break room when Theo's death was confirmed, a male technician said aloud, "One less gang member to treat." The comment was allegedly met with laughter by 2 other staffers. Let's call it what it is. That's not a lack of professionalism. That's a culture of dehumanization, one where a young black man's trauma becomes comedy. But maybe the most heartbreaking detail of all, Theo didn't even want to be in Tampa. According to multiple sources close to the rapper, he chose Tampa at the last minute, hoping to avoid attracting heat from his Jacksonville rivals. His team believed the distance and the hotel security would make it harder for ops to track him. They were wrong. Not only was Theo's location posted on social media, but Ring cameras and Cash App receipts allegedly placed multiple suspects in the area hours before the shooting ever happened. According to DJ Academics, everyone's going to prison for like 20-30 years. Life. Some of them may even get the death penalty. The plot was surgical. 2 separate vehicles, phones left at home to avoid GPS tracking, bullet fragments matched to other homicides, subpoenaed Cash App purchases proving intent, 4K surveillance from Teslas parked in the lot. If this wasn't a hit, then what do you call it? Foolio's ambush didn't happen in isolation. It was the final, a chapter in a story that had been unraveling for years. A story soaked in retaliation, betrayal, and surveillance. And the more you look at it, the clearer it becomes. This was personal. The question isn't just who killed Theo. The real question is how many people knew he was going to die before the bullets ever flew. And that brings us to the girl, the one who texted his location, the one now sitting in a cold interrogation room cooperating with detectives, the one who's pregnant and allegedly hoping for a deal. As confirmed by multiple sources, she was at the hotel. She was in the room. And according to Vlad TV, she's telling everything. What does that mean? That means Theo's enemies didn't just find him. They were led to him. One of the suspects, an 18-year-old who had previously shot Foolio in the foot, allegedly drove 3 hours to carry out the hit. The same teenager is now linked to multiple shootings, including one from just weeks earlier. This wasn't kids playing gangster. This was a cycle of violence built on loyalty, street fame, and surveillance tech. But while everyone's dissecting the ops in the drive-by, nobody is talking about what happened inside the hospital. We spoke to a hospital porter, again requesting anonymity, who claimed that within 30 minutes of Fio's death, security had already downloaded surveillance footage from the ambulance bay. Why? Because Tampa PD had asked for it, not requested, demanded. He says the officers arrived tense, aggressive, and made jokes about Foolio's music as they stood over his body. Quote, "I wonder if he's still smoking on BB now." That's a reference to Foolio's infamous response track, "When I See You," a remix of Fantasia's hit R&B ballad, where he explicitly names deceased rivals from Jacksonville, including BB Techie and others. The track went viral, both because of its haunting melody and the morbid braggadocio of its lyrics. But the truth behind those lyrics, it's even darker than the music, because Fio wasn't inventing beef for clout. As he told No Jumper in an extended sit-down interview, his songs came straight from real trauma. He was shot at just 15 years old while getting off a school bus. Double quotes, "Oh, I got hit on my hip. It broke my hip. Hell yeah, man. That was just crazy how that happening, bro. Cause that whole day when I was in school, I got in an argument with a couple people, like a couple boys off in the fight and hopped on their bus. I was just on some arrogant bro. I wasn't really thinking cause I'm 15 years old. Let that sink in. 15 years old, shot, crawling in pain. And the neighborhood treated him like trash. So when he later rapped about the dead, it wasn't just provocation, it was retaliation through Mazuka way to take power back in a world that left him bleeding in front yards. But Foolio's pain didn't end there. His younger brother was killed by police at age 15. He talked about it often, and even in his last interviews, Foolio described the paranoia of being red flagged in the system, where every cop already had a target on his back. That was his life. Getting harassed, getting shot at, getting blacklisted by clubs and banned from venues, even in his own hometown. A strip club in Jacksonville went as far as putting up a printed sign banning his music from being played in the building. Not just him, but songs from others affiliated with him were also blacklisted. He showed proof of that ban on Instagram just months before his death. People say Fio invited the violence. They're missing the context. He was fighting a war he didn't start. And in many ways he never escaped it. Even in death, he wasn't shown dignity, not by the media, not by some of the people sworn to keep him alive. And now with the suspects facing life in prison, the question becomes, but while the hospital failed him and the headlines skipped the truth, detectives didn't totally do that. Behind the heartbreak and controversy was a manhunt already in motion, and the investigation, it was unlike anything the streets had ever seen. The investigation, the murder of Foolio, wasn't just another casualty in America's ongoing war in the streets. It was a case that would show how modern technology has completely revolutionized how police solve murders, even while that same technology enables new forms of coordination between shooters and their targets. Within hours of the shooting, Tampa police investigators were going through a digital goldmine of evidence that would have been straight science fiction just a decade ago. The investigation utilized surveillance video, license plate readers, and phone logs to piece together not just what went down that night, but who was responsible and exactly how they planned this hit. The amount of surveillance footage available was absolutely insane. Beyond the hotel cameras that caught the actual murder, investigators had access to footage from multiple other locations that told the complete story of that deadly night. The comprehensive video evidence spanned Teaser's Gentleman's Club, Truth, 18 nightclub, the Holiday Inn, and even a Tesla's built-in security system, creating a timeline that prosecutors could follow minute by minute, like they were watching a movie. What investigators discovered through this footage was chilling in how calculated these shooters really were. The surveillance videos revealed that this wasn't no spur-of-the-moment beef or some random act of violence. This was a carefully planned execution that had been organized with military-level precision. The footage showed the ops following Fio from location to location throughout the entire night, tracking his movements with the patience and precision of professional hitmen. The technological breakthrough came when investigators started analyzing the digital footprints these killers left behind. License plate readers had captured the suspects' vehicles as they traveled from Jacksonville to Tampa, a journey of several hours that proved this murder was premeditated as hell. These automated systems spread throughout Florida's highway network created an electronic trail that was impossible to erase or cover up. But perhaps the most damning evidence was what cell phone data revealed about the planning that went into this assassination. Phone logs showed that the shooters had been using cell phone data to track Fio's location with GPS coordinates and social media monitoring, creating a comprehensive surveillance operation. The same technology that Foolio used to promote his music and connect with his fans had been turned into a weapon against him by his enemies. The sophistication of the digital investigation extended deep into social media analysis. Investigators discovered that the shooters had been monitoring Foolio's Instagram post throughout the night, using his own social media presence to predict his movements and plan their attack. When Foolio posted his location at the birthday party, he had essentially provided his killers with real-time intelligence about exactly where to find him. As investigators dug deeper into the evidence, they uncovered a web of connections that painted a crystal-clear picture of the motive behind this hit. The shooting was directly linked to the ongoing gang beef with Foolio repping 6 Block and KTA, while the suspects were affiliated with ATK and 1,200 rival sets that had been at war for years. This wasn't random street violence. It was a targeted execution carried out as part of a cycle of retaliation that had been escalating for nearly a decade. The speed with which authorities were able to identify the shooters was unprecedented for such a complex case. Within just over a month of the murder, Tampa Police Chief Lee Burkall announced that 3 individuals had been arrested: Isaiah Jermaine Chance, 21, Alicia Latoya Andrews, 21, and Shaw Andrega, 18. The rapid identification and arrest of these suspects demonstrated just how powerful modern investigative tools had become when properly deployed by law enforcement. But it was the circumstances of these arrests that would have the streets talking, and eventually go viral across all social media platforms. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, working in coordination with Tampa Police, had planned these arrests with the same precision that the suspects had used in planning their murder. On July 27, 2024, in the early morning hours during a heavy rainstorm, law enforcement moved in hard. Body cam footage of these arrests would become a sensation on social media, showing officers in full tactical gear moving through the rain-soaked streets of Jacksonville to apprehend the suspects. The footage, labeled with Axon body timestamps, captured every detail of the operation with the same high-definition clarity that had documented the original crime. Viewers could see officers escorting the suspects in both outdoor and indoor settings, with tactical teams coordinating simultaneous raids at multiple locations. The dramatic weather conditions added an almost cinematic quality to the arrest footage that had everyone on social media talking. Rain-soaked streets reflected the flashing lights of police vehicles, while officers in tactical gear moved with practiced efficiency to secure their targets. The comments on social media immediately started reflecting on how dramatic the whole scene looked, with users posting reactions about how when police come for you in the rain, you know they got you dead to rights. The evidence against the arrested suspects was overwhelming and comprehensive as hell. Since our last interview, Foolio, who has gotten killed, and 5 people were involved. 4 guys, 1 girl. The girl's pregnant currently, no, which makes it even crazier. One of the guys was there arresting him. I guess he had a gun to his head. Did you hear this whole story? In what seemed like an incredibly stupid decision, one of the suspects had apparently kept souvenirs from the murder, creating physical evidence that tied him directly to the crime scene. Perhaps most damaging of all was the cooperation they received from one of their own crew. So, she's already spoke to them and confirmed, "Oh yeah, we were here. Oh yeah, we were at the hotel when he got hit, but we didn't know what was happening. We were lost." Her statements provided investigators with insider information about the planning and execution of the murder. The investigation also revealed the crucial role that social media had played in both the planning and execution of this hit. The shooters had been monitoring Foolio's Instagram post, using his own promotional activities against him. Every time he posted his location or announced his plans, he was essentially providing intelligence to those who wanted him dead. The sophistication of the operation was matched only by how sloppy they got afterwards. The same technology that enabled them to plan and coordinate the murder also created the evidence that would convict them as the investigation continued. 2 more suspects remained on the run: Rashad Murphy, 30, and Davon Murphy, 27. Rashad Murphy would eventually surrender after a standoff on July 30, 2024, while Dave Murphy would remain a fugitive for months, finally getting caught in January 2025. The breadth and quality of evidence collected in this case set new standards for how gang-related murder investigations should be conducted. Prosecutors had surveillance footage, cell phone records, license plate data, social media evidence, physical evidence from suspects' homes, and cooperating witnesses. It was the kind of comprehensive case that prosecutors dream about, one where guilt could be established beyond any reasonable doubt. Aftermath, consequences, and the future of the streets. The legal proceedings that followed would prove to be just as dramatic as the arrests themselves. By January 7, 2025, all 5 suspects had been captured, with Dave Murphy being the final fugitive to get caught after a 6-month manhunt. The completion of arrest marked a significant milestone in what had become one of the most closely watched murder cases in recent hip-hop history. Florida prosecutors announced they were seeking the death penalty for Isaiah Chance, Sean Gathright, and Rashad Murphy, while notably excluding Alicia Andrews from the death penalty notice. This decision suggested that prosecutors saw different levels of involvement among the suspects, with some viewed as getaway drivers and others as the actual shooters who pulled the triggers and did the dirty work. The courtroom proceedings themselves became another stage for the ongoing drama. Defense attorneys tried to challenge whether suspects could be identified in the surveillance footage during court hearings, but the mountain of evidence against them seemed insurmountable. From the surveillance videos to the physical evidence found in their cribs to the cell phone data tracking their movements, prosecutors had built what appeared to be an airtight case. Meanwhile, the hip-hop community was dealing with its own reckoning about the culture of violence that had led to this tragedy. The speed with which diss tracks had been released after Foolio's death had shocked even people who were used to hip-hop beef culture. Young and AC's Do It, which dropped just hours after the murder, had sparked intense debate about the ethics of the genre and the responsibility that artists bear for the violence their music can inspire and promote. The controversy got even deeper when more diss tracks started dropping, while Young and Ace followed up with Game Over in July 2024, further stoking the flames of what many saw as an increasingly toxic culture. These releases were criticized by some as profoundly disrespectful, while others defended them as part of rap's competitive tradition and street authenticity. But perhaps nothing illustrated the complexity of the situation better than what happened at Foolio's own funeral. Family members rapped his diss track When I See You during the service, highlighting how deeply the culture of beef and retaliation had penetrated even the most sacred moments of grief and remembrance. It was a stark reminder that the violence wasn't just about the rappers themselves. It had consumed entire families and whole communities. The aftermath also saw some wild developments that kept Fio in the headlines even after he was gone. Posthumous Instagram posts appeared on his account, including one featuring his face on The Undertaker's body with the caption, "I'll never die, I'm a demigod." These posts led some fans to speculate wildly about whether he had faked his death. Though authorities and family members had confirmed his passing, the posts were likely managed by his team or family as part of promoting his posthumous music releases. The release of Foolio's posthumous album Demigod on September 23, 2024 added another layer to his complicated legacy. The 17-track album featuring collaborations with artists like Treyboy and Project Youngin was both a celebration of his talent and a stark reminder of what the streets had lost. Fan reactions were mixed, with some praising its substance, while others criticized its promotion as inadequate for properly honoring his memory. The broader impact on Jacksonville's drill rap scene has been profound and multifaceted. Music producer PD8 expressed hope that Foolio's death might inspire a shift toward more positive music, calling the industry's violent trend ignorance and hoping for change that could uplift the community. But the reality on the ground remains troubling, with the beef between rival gangs already being blamed for additional violence, including the murder of a 7-year-old in 2025. Law enforcement officials continued to monitor the situation carefully. Jacksonville Sheriff TK Waters emphasized that his department would not tolerate revenge attacks, but the underlying tensions that had fueled years of violence remained largely unchanged. The arrests in Fio's case had taken some key players off the board, but the gang structures and cultural dynamics that had created them remained intact. I want to applaud the investigators from Tampa PD and JSO for their committed collaborative work to bring violent criminals to justice. What I saw in this partnership evidenced the very best of information and resource pooling to ensure public safety. The viral nature of the bodycam footage had also raised important questions about transparency and public access to police materials. While the footage provided valuable insight into how law enforcement operates, it also turned a serious criminal investigation into viral entertainment, blurring the lines between justice and spectacle. The same technology that had enabled the thorough investigation of Foolio's murder had also turned his death and the arrest of his killers into content for social media consumption. For the families involved, both Fio's and those of the accused, the viral nature of the case has meant that their private tragedies have become public entertainment. Foolio's mother announced plans for a documentary called The Real Life Story to share her son's authentic story, emphasizing her unique perspective as someone who knows the truths from the fakes. Her efforts to control the narrative around her son's life and death reflect the broader struggle that families face when their loved ones become viral sensations. The case has also highlighted the evolving role that social media plays in modern criminal investigations. The fact that the shooters used Fio's own Instagram post to track his location demonstrates how platforms designed to connect people can be weaponized by those with violent intent. It raises serious questions about privacy, safety, and the responsibility of social media companies to protect users from being targeted based on their posts. So, what do we take from all this? Fio didn't just die in a parking lot. He died in a system that had already written him off. A system where his last breath was met with smirks instead of urgency, and where the people meant to save him whispered jokes instead of prayers. And now, thanks to that nurse, we know his final moments weren't silent. He tried to speak, he tried to say something. Maybe a warning, maybe a name, maybe a goodbye. But one thing's for sure, this story isn't over. Not in the streets, not in the courtroom, and definitely not in the culture. Because the question was never just who killed Foolio. The real questions are who helped, who watched, who knew, and how many stayed quiet. If you love this video, then click on the card showing on your screen for more videos like